So, what would you like to have happen? What would be wonderful this afternoon?
Well, I want to put myself into this situation because I've kind of been avoiding it. I've asked you loads of questions during the course of the modules, and some of that is because I'm very safe and familiar with being up in my head. And as you know, part of my journey has been moving more into my heart and just knowing that I can take a lot of stuff off my mind. And I find myself here at the end of the training course still with this question, and I don't know whether this is my wisdom speaking or if this is still busy stuff I'm making up in my head. But my question is, so now what? Where do I go with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what was kind of behind my question this morning. Because I feel like, grounding is wonderful, and this is a journey now that I'm on for the rest of my life. There's no going back once you've kind of seen it. But, and there's all kinds of ways in which that could happen. But I really want to take this into the world. I really want to, have impact. Maybe we're not supposed to want that, but I do want to have impact. I want to, like that Marianne Williamson quote says, I don't want to place so small as I feel maybe I have done in the past. And what's happened circumstantially for me is that I have informally coached people, but I haven't charged money for it. And friends and family come to me and tell me about their lives. And people have said to me, this is absolutely something you should be doing. And I've heard that. But I find myself at the end of this course with no paying clients and really kind of not knowing where to go with this. And maybe some of my story here has been, in my life I've done a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other, and now here I've done a bit of clarity. And I want to take this to help other people at the most basic level.
Great. So I'm going to pause for a second. So I asked a question, which was, what would you like to have happen? We got a lot of information, okay? And then at the very end, Jeanie said, I want to take this and help people at the most basic level. Now, just between us, I have no idea what that means, but I know that Jeanie has an idea of what that means. So that's where I'm going to go next. I won't tell her that. I'll just kind of dive into it. So Jeanie, I heard you say that you want to help people at the most basic level. What do you mean?
I want people to see where their experience is coming from in the same way that I've learnt to see that.
Great. Well, and
I want to find a setting or a job or a context in which to do this, because that would help. I would like to earn some money.
Okay,
all those things.
Can I make a list? So. Help people. With this, so.
With this understanding.
This understanding. What you're calling context, stroke setting, and getting paid. One way or another, earning.
Yeah, one way or another.
One way or another. So do you mind whether the money is coming from individuals or governments or charities or companies or whatever? So just getting paid for what you do. Great. So what we've got on the wall is approximately 35 different contexts where you can do that. Is there one of those that appeals more than others?
Well, what
Now,
happens
let me
is...
pause you for a second. So at the moment, we're getting a little more information. It's still very general. So I'm going to be trying to get a little more detail from Jeanie until I can get to the point where we're kind of on the same page. And then I'll probably go general again. So let's see where we get to. So any of those that appeal?
What happens when I look at this list is that I feel overwhelmed by it. I just think I kind of have I don't think about what I want. I kind of think I've got some experience in that and a bit of experience in that. And then what could I actually practically do? And a piece of information is that I've applied for a temporary social work job at the John Radcliffe Hospital because it's what I've done before. And part of me, and I've had a break of employment because of writing my book, and part of me thinks, well, is that a retrograde step, going back to child protection and working with people in a hospital with non-accidental injuries and all that stuff, going back to the local authority? There's a feeling going back somehow. Or would I be going there as in a different frame of mind because of coming into this understanding? And would that really be making the greatest impact I could make with this? Or is it just something that's known, and I'm going back to something I can do because it's local and I've done it before? And if I think, well, if there's a voice in me that says I'd like to perhaps work for a charity or in business or in another setting with any of these groups, actually, I just don't know where to start. I just feel, where do I go with that?
Well, now, here's the interesting thing. When did you apply for the social work job?
About a month ago.
Okay, and have you heard back?
Yeah, so I've got the job.
You've got the job.
It's a temporary job.
Yeah.
It's a temporary job.
Have you started yet?
I'm just waiting for references, so 2 weeks' time.
Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing to me. While there are all these things that you might do, there's something you already are doing. Okay, now, will you be able to help people in that context?
Hopefully, yeah.
Well, just just based on, I mean, it's an area you've got experience of, and so you know the kind of cases you're going to be cases you're going to be working with. Having seen what you've seen for yourself and experienced what you've experienced for yourself, and having seen the kind of impact that it's possible to have, does it seem fair to assume that you could have that kind of impact there?
I think it's quite possible. I won't be able to because it's a highly regulated environment working for the local authority. It's high bureaucracy regulation environment, and because there's such a culture of crisis management really, and everything being, and a view of people that they are essentially broken. Well, you can make little inroads there by having a different view on that, but I think it's a difficult environment in which to live out this understanding and make an impact with it. I think it's difficult. But I'm saying all of that in my head in advance.
Yeah. Help me understand, why would it be difficult? I heard everything you said about it's highly regulated, it's very bureaucratic, there's a crisis culture, there's an assumption that people are broken. But why would that make it difficult for you to know the truth?
It wouldn't make it difficult for me to know the truth.
Say that again?
It wouldn't make it difficult for me to know the truth.
So just stay with that for a second. Like, that, to me, that right there, there's power right there. Knowing that regardless of the context and the crisis culture and the chaos, no doubt, in any moment you can be present to the truth. I might even ask, why does something which undoubtedly got started as a good idea, hey, we probably ought to take care of children. That sounds like wisdom to me, right? So someone had a good idea and started putting things in place from wisdom and common sense and that sort of thing. And somewhere along the line, they lost touch with that, or they got overwhelmed with the complexity of it, or budgets got cut, or people got insecure. So it seems to me that in that context specifically, the thing that has been in shortest supply has been the truth. So given that there's the context, there's you, and there's the people that you're trying to impact or wanting to impact, if you're coming from a place of knowing the truth, what then becomes possible in that context?
I don't know, because I'm not in it yet, but what I worry about...
Well, hang on a second. See, that's true. I don't know, because I'm not in it yet. What do you worry about?
I'm worried that I'll be... I won't be able to find much expression for sharing this understanding with people in the job because of all the stuff that will be a statutory obligation to do, and that therefore it'll kind of get squeezed out of my life, and I'll end up thinking, oh, it was another of the things that I trained in and haven't...
Well, hang on a second, though.
Used.
This isn't a thing that you do. This is something you live.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine two very distinct paths. One where a person takes the job and just gets completely overwhelmed with the crisis and chaos of that, and it's just like, whatever. And another where someone takes the job and occasionally gets overwhelmed and then comes back to what's true. And occasionally has a low, comes back to what's true. Has an impact, comes, speaking to you as someone who has a coaching practice and a training practice and that sort of thing, I have plenty of opportunities every day to lose my way, to get overwhelmed, to have too much on my plate, to get caught up in all the things that we have to do and all that sort of stuff. But the truth is the truth. Now, I can imagine you wandering away from it from time to time.
Yeah, but are you saying the context doesn't matter in a sense?
Can you hold the microphone?
Are you saying the context doesn't really matter?
Well, here's the thing. Yes and no. If we take, and I have no idea whether you should do the social work job, the temporary social work job. But the thing about temp jobs is, what's the notice period? I
have no idea. I think they're hoping I'll stay on. Oh, no.
Okay. So is it like a few weeks?
At least a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a context where you can practice. Yeah. Now, we'll talk in a minute about what would you love to do and what else could you do and that sort of thing. But I notice in the meantime of thinking what I might do and that sort of thing, you've gone and got yourself a temp job where actually you have the possibility of helping people. Like the starting point for sharing this understanding is seeing it for yourself. Yeah. If you're seeing it for yourself, funnily enough, my dear friend and colleague Chantal Burns has done a social work project with Hertfordshire Social Work. Number of different groups of social workers going through that. I'll connect you with her. And it's had a profound impact for them. So I know that it's possible, despite all the regulation, despite all that stuff. I know it's absolutely possible, so I'll happily connect you. You see, here's the thing. You've been learning this and talking to friends and that sort of thing. Then there's practicing it in a professional context. You practice it, just for example, in this context, and you'll get a bunch of experience. You'll get experience of what works, experience of what doesn't work. You'll see colleagues being impacted or not being impacted. You'll see clients or service users being impacted or not being impacted. But it's all, as my friend Kathy says, it's all grist for the mill. Yeah. It's part of your, it could, if you decide to continue with the temp job, it could consist of an amazing learning experience. It could be a learning experience that you're drawing on for years to come in terms of references, like reference experiences of things that have happened and that sort of thing. Now, when you worry about it, you know, like I heard you say, I'm worried, oh, what if I do that and then I forget about it? And where does it seem like that experience is coming from?
I know it's just my story that I tell myself.
Do you? Because I think, like, check this out. Here, I'm going to give you a story. Tell yourself, I'm a banana-flavored balloon captain. Tell yourself that story. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that causing any concern?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now worry about, what if my feet turn into beautiful princesses of jelly? Is that causing concern?
No.
Now, why not?
Because it's not real.
It's not real.
Yeah.
So the issue isn't that there's a story that you sometimes tell yourself. The issue is that sometimes you believe it's real.
Yeah.
If you knew it was a story, and the same's true for me, Jeanie. When I know it's a story, there's no issue whatsoever. The issue is when I don't think when I think there's more to it than that.
But there's a reality to.
Can you hold the microphone?
There's a reality to just working out what's next, isn't there? And part of my thing in the past, one of the things that's helped me so much in this journey has been, I always used to think there was a right way out there. In fact, I remember for the first half day that I did on whatever you call your half day thing, you know, when I said, I want the right job, I was onto it then, you know, and you said, oh, that's just another teddy bear. Yeah. And that was one of my moments when I thought, oh yeah. So I just, but even when you've kind of grown into this thing of just listen to what your wisdom is saying, somehow you still need to make decisions and take actions, and and kind of, so I still easily move into that space of, I wish I knew what my calling was, my vocation. I wish I knew what was really, you know, what could I really be and do in the world? I had this one unique, precious, wild life. What am I going to do with it? Especially now I've got this, you know? And then I kind of, where do I go with that? It's just...
See, I love this. Check this out. Actually, I'm going to pause you for a second. So here's the interesting thing. Jeanie, a year ago or 10 months ago, whenever it was, something in her went, come on this training. And so she's done it. Now, to me, that looks like following her purpose, following that path. But that's not good enough. Like, yeah, but what am I going to do next? Now, here's the thing. It looks to me like the thing she's already signed up for is totally the next step for her. But maybe it isn't. So I'm going to do some inquiring about, you know the kind of cheesy coaching question, what if anything were possible, you know, if there were a miracle tonight and you wake up tomorrow morning and everything's the way you want it to be, how would you know a miracle had occurred? So I'll do all that with her anyway, because I thought it would be fun. 3 things I had in mind. One was, look at what's already happening. See, while she's been angsting about this stuff and what am I going to do and that sort of thing, meanwhile, she's accepted a job in a place where she knows the basic groundwork and has an opportunity to take this understanding into a domain that she already understands well. To start in a domain she understands well. That looks like common sense to me. Guess where I practiced all the stuff that I was learning and practiced doing it professionally? A domain I understood well. Who else has started in a domain they understood well? Do you see? Now, who has learned this understanding and gone, I want to go do something completely different, gone and done it, and right away being successful? Yeah. No, and I'm not saying doing the social work contract is the right thing to do or whatever. I have no idea. But what I am saying is, I want to acknowledge that it has the ring of common sense. Going into a context you already understand well and sharing something that makes sense to you. Now, when I first saw this understanding, I already had a training and coaching business. So that's where I started. That's where I started. Made sense to me. I already understood the domain well. It's like I could have gone, I want to go and work with nurses, doing, or I could have gone, I want to go and be a social worker. I could have, but it's a domain that I have no understanding of. I understand the principles. So I want to acknowledge the wisdom of that. So that's the first thing. Acknowledge the wisdom of that choice. Number two, look at impact. The fact is, if you want to have a big impact with people, if you want to be able to make a difference and get paid for it and all that sort of stuff, you got to be good at it. You got to be good at it. And that takes, in my experience, takes a little time. You learn, you develop your skills. Who's better at coaching? Who's a professional coach who's better at coaching than they were 2 years ago? Okay, interesting. How much of that came from not talking to people at all? There's something about doing the work and getting better at it. About developing your skills. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing I wanted to look at was just that sense of what would be wonderful for you. What would be wonderful? But here's the thing. The whole story of, I'm looking for my purpose. Where's my purpose? Why can't I find my purpose? If only I could find my calling. What I see inevitably when people are saying that to themselves and telling themselves that story and that sort of thing, meanwhile they're doing it. Who's had the experience of thinking they've been looking for their purpose, like for months or years, and then one day you woke up and realized you were already there? It's classic, Jeanie. So, I'm not saying your purpose is to be a social worker. No, I'm just saying, what if, here's the thing. Here's what happens. Person gets a feeling of, whether we want to call it dissatisfaction or yearning or craving or something not being quite right. And they believe that feeling is telling them about their purpose stroke calling deficiency, or about their future, or about their potential stroke being squandered, or about their precious life not being used, or about themselves and what they're like as a person and all that stuff. It's like, no, those feelings are telling you about thought. Those feelings don't know about your future. Those feelings don't know about your calling. Those feelings don't know about your potential. Those feelings don't even know that Jeanie exists. Those feelings are just telling you about energy running through your thought system. But the moment you believe there's more to it than that, then you jump on the hamster wheel and start, oh, now I'm looking for my purpose. Now, here's the thing. There's no truth in that. And I would go further. I would say that the only thing that ever gets in the way of a person realizing purpose is the misguided search for purpose. There's a story, there's a book. I'm a master of buying books, reading the introduction and never finishing them. This book had a great introduction. It's by a guy called Nick Arjuna Smith. And it's called something like Relaxing into Clear Seeing, or something like this. Anyway, so this guy had been on course after course after course. He'd been on program after program after program, 20 years of running on the self-development hamster wheel. And he's out of money, he's out of luck, and his friend goes, "Oh, I met this guru in India, you should go see him." And the guy's like, "Are you kidding me?" And this guy's the business. Go see this guru. So Nick sells his last possession, which is his motorbike, to pay for a plane ticket, goes all the way to India, gets driven to a house somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and there's this guy there, and there's a queue of people waiting to have a few words with the master. And finally it's Nick's turn, and he says to the guru, he says, "I've spent 20 years searching and seeking for what I've been looking for my heart's desire. I've spent all this time and I can't find it." He says, "Please, my question is this. What's been standing in the way of me finding it?" And the guru says, "Oh, seeking, of course." Your feelings, they're telling you about thought and nothing else. They don't know about you. They don't know about your potential. They don't know about your purpose and your calling. The beauty of it is, in the midst of all that, you're totally on track.
How do I know that?
Well, keep breathing. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. I want you to breathe, Jeanie. I want you to breathe, because here's what I'm noticing. I can really feel you right now. And I can feel, or at least it seems to me, like there's a connection here, and like it looked like you just got touched. Now I'll loop back to how we know that, but I don't want to engage there yet, because that's in the domain of insecurity and worry and all that. And we've already established, to my satisfaction, that that ain't where it's at. So you just stay here for a second. I'm going to talk to these guys. Now, did you notice that just somewhere in there, it kind of something dropped in and we could feel Jeanie so much more? Like that thing, that it's another teddy bear. The right job was a teddy bear. Well, there's the right job for me, then there's the right job that the universe has in mind for me. So this is the ultimate right job, right? So it's another teddy bear. It's another teddy bear. And that's totally okay. It's totally natural. And I'm going to do the thing with Jeanie in a minute about what would you love to do. But meanwhile, what I see is that they're just taking up references in a context where Jeanie can help people. To what degree remains to be seen, where she can live this understanding and that will have an impact on people. To what degree remains to be seen, where she can get paid for it. So the very thing she's asking for is she's already doing it. She can learn more about how you have an impact with this understanding. So, Jeanie. If I could wave a magic wand, or if there was a miracle tonight, and you wake up tomorrow morning, and everything in this domain that we're talking about, playing a bigger game and all that sort of stuff, everything's the way you want it to be, how would you know that a miracle had taken place? What would you see? What would you hear? What would you feel that would let you know?
I don't know how to answer that, because I don't know what I want, actually, when it comes down to it.
Great. Good. So, that sounds totally sensible and rational to me. Keep breathing. Sounds totally sensible and rational to me. So, in the domain of direction, purpose, calling, all that sort of stuff, you can either choose from the menu of stuff I've looked at all, or you can say, I don't fucking know, I'll be guided. You don't have to swear. You don't have to swear.
How do you get guidance? I mean, guidance from within, I guess.
Yeah, not from, from within.
You know, it's hard to know what you want, isn't it?
Well, hang on a second.
It's hard to know what you want.
I'm not sure if that's true. Like, for instance, it sounded like, from what you described earlier, it sounds like you've really come home to yourself. Do you want more of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it hard to know that?
No.
No, okay, good. So isn't it nice to know that when something shows up that's really on path for you, that's right for you, forgive the terminology, but that's kind of nutritious and good and wholesome for Jeanie, that you just know it. Isn't it good to know that you have, and that it's not like it's hard to figure out, but you just know it, right?
Yeah.
So given that you have that ability to discern, and given that by your own description, you know you want more of that, but in terms of what form it takes, you don't actually know. No. But you do know that when you know it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Perfect. What if that's totally okay?
Yeah, that's the bit that's difficult for me to really feel. Because I really admire the people in my life. I'm surrounded by, people in my life who've got a strong sense of calling, who are doing amazing things in the world, and I really admire their work. But
Great.
It's hard. It's hard, and so I get this push-pull thing where I think it's not enough just to say I want to nourish my soul and just come home to myself. That's not enough. I need to be out there changing the world, because that is really what matters. It's not about me.
There's two things. You ever heard the Gandhi quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world"? Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about Stevie. I used to have a friend called Stevie. I haven't seen Stevie in a long time. And she was practicing Buddhist. And Stevie would spend hours every day chanting for world peace. Well, Stevie was the least peaceful person I ever met.
It's up on the way. Yeah.
She was full of chaos all the time. And that showed up in her life in a variety of ways. And the biggest thing Stevie could have done to change the world and to bring more peace into the world is to start with herself. Now, every person I ever met who has a calling, who has a sense of big purpose and direction and that sort of thing, can tell you when it arrived. and can tell you about the time before it arrived. I remember an interview with Steve Jobs. He said he had just taken over, been rehired by Apple, and had turned the company around and all this stuff. And he was being interviewed, and they asked him, "What are you going to do next?" He said, "I don't know." And they said, "You don't know?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know." And he said, well, there's all this opportunity and all these things that need doing. What are you going to do?" He said, "Wait until I know." Well, he didn't know for a while. But then once he knew, he created the iPod and iTunes and the iPhone and everything like that. And see, if you believe that your feelings of dissatisfaction are letting you know about your lack of a purpose and lack of calling and lack of this and about how amazing everyone else is and how rubbish you are and all that, it's going to be harder to discern calling when it shows up. But the thing is, no matter how much you had going on, you know that sense of coming home to yourself, could you have missed that? Like once you felt it, could you have missed it, or was it obvious?
I knew.
Yeah. Are you open to the possibility that it's the same with purpose and calling and direction? That you just know?
Yeah. I am open. I just find it hard waiting.
Yeah.
I'm a really impatient person.
Well, no, you're not. No, you're not. I would say sometimes you feel impatient and then attribute to that to yourself. Mm-hmm. But no, you're the I am. You're not that's like saying I equal impatient. It's not true. You're the oneness of life, Jeanie. What could be more patient than that? So, see, here's what I love. I said I had three things. One, to see where you're at. Yes. Two, to talk about impact. And then the other is to talk about, what you would love to have happen, the miracle stuff. And you really honestly, which I really love, said, I just don't know what I want. I trust that. That's where I was at the end of 2008. I'm like, I'd succeeded in all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not feeling fulfilled. I want to feel a sense of purpose. I don't know what to do. Well, I took months of sitting watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Because that was the only thing. If you ask me, what do you want to do? Watch reruns of Buffy. That was about it. And then, true story. And then one day, I went from having no idea of purpose and direction, and then literally woke up the next morning, and I was like, holy shit, this is principles. I'm going to be teaching this for the next 20 years. Whoa, I never knew. Like the day before, I did not know it. Yet, the moment it happened, I knew. And I was in LA at the time, so I picked up the phone to Nikki. I said, hey, Nikki, I've got some interesting news. We're getting out of the NLP business. And she was like, what the fuck? Because she hadn't woken up that morning and seen. So I knew. And for months and months and months, a year probably before that, I hadn't known. And it was good that I didn't know. Because I knew that I didn't know. I knew that I didn't know. And so when you know that you don't know, then you get to enjoy life such as it is until you know. And be with what's showing up. And do that. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah.
Say that again?
That makes total sense.
Beautiful. Now, what did you hear that makes total sense to you?
It's just a relief that I can let go, that I have to have a calling, actually. And I see that as a theme in my life over years and years and years, really, as a recurring theme, and a feeling of, missing out somehow. So I do see that. I feel like you're giving me permission, or I'm giving myself permission, just to not know for a bit.
And meanwhile, what I can promise you, like when I look back at all the things I'd been doing leading up to that moment when I was like, oh, this is where we're at. All of a sudden, it all made sense. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, he shouldn't really have worried about it. It was all fine. Can you guys put your hands together for Jeanie? Thank you, Jeanie.